Disclosure Day is about the everyday man and woman who find themselves in the middle of a government conspiracy to hide the existence of aliens. But if you really want to break it down to its bare essentials, the marketing hook for this movie is this: Steven Spielberg doing another alien movie. And when you put it like that, it's not hard to be excited. This is the dude who directed E.T and Close Encounters, two of the biggest alien movies of all time. This should function like a heartfelt high school reunion between you and your old mates. But as you sit in the theater to watch Disclosure Day, you'll slowly realize that is not the case. This movie is not the high school reunion itself. Instead, it's the jock at the high school reunion who shows up still wearing his high school jersey, throwing a baseball around and picking on the dorks because he simply can't move on. Now, I'm far from a Spielberg enthusiast, but his last movie, The Fabelmans, might just be my favorite one he's directed, so I had a lot of reason to be excited. But in returning to a subject matter that made him the director icon he is today, he only highlights why the Steven Spielberg of yesterday is not the Steven Spielberg of today. Failing not because he's changed what made him so special as a director, but because he's failed to evolve his craft. Let's look at a guy like Martin Scorsese and take in the fact that Taxi Driver released in the 1970s. So it's even more impressive that we go into the 21st century and the dude's still putting out bangers. The Irishman and The Wolf of Wall Street are not necessarily the movies he would have made in the 1970s, but they're a sign of a director who's managed to evolve his style while still staying true to his unique voice. The Irishman is a movie that revisits the gangster genre, but does so with a new lens, allowing the director to approach the same subject matter with a more mature, reflective eye. But if Martin Scorsese is a well-aged wine, Steven Spielberg is still trying to squeeze himself into his jersey that just doesn't fit anymore. Everything from the mustache-twirling villains to the cliche platitudes about empathy make this a movie feel like one that easily could have come out in the early 2010s. It's the kind of movie where a character asks Josh O'Connor why he's going through all the trouble of exposing this government conspiracy, to which he looks us in the eye and says, "The people deserve to know." I might be embellishing a little bit, but that is more or less exactly what happens in the movie. It makes so much sense to me that President Obama chose this movie to be the first movie set he's ever visited, because this movie is just so spiritually Barack Obama. It is the desperate attempt of a 7-year-old man to take himself back to the bumper sticker optimism that people felt in America when Obama was first elected. And hey, that's not to say that cinema has no place for empathy or universal message of positivity. James Gunn's Superman is a very high profile example of a blockbuster movie that is unabashed about its optimism and love for humanity. And if you want a more low profile example, I might even argue that Christopher Borgle's The Drama is about the exact same thing. So why does this movie fail while those ones genuinely work? To answer that, we have to go back to E.T. If you love E.T, I doubt you love it because you just love aliens who have big heads and big eyes. You've probably loved it because of the heart, because of that relationship between E.T and Elliot. So while E.T. felt like a Steven Spielberg film, Disclosure Day feels like an out-of-touch exec misunderstanding why people loved E.T. in the first place. Because this movie is devoid of the heart that was found in E.T. and even Close Encounters. No one can argue that Emily Blunt isn't doing her absolute best in this movie. I might even argue this is her best performance, period. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a lot required from her in terms of accent work, and she absolutely pulls each one off while being genuinely entertaining and compelling. But even a stellar performance from Emily Blunt can't dress a pig up. It can't change the fact that this movie is absolutely devoid of any soul. There is very little reason to root for these characters on a personal level. So if the cliche been there done that plot about we just need to let the public know about aliens doesn't grip grip you, then nothing will. Josh O'Connell is a righteous do-gooder, Emily Blunt is just weird, and when the two characters cross paths, it feels less personal and more of a matter of convenience. There's no character who we truly connect with on a personal level because we barely get to know them beyond their immediate goal. Who are these people? How do they like to spend their free times? These are stuff that this movie doesn't really concern itself with. A movie about empathy that is scared to feel anything. But hey, if you can't deliver on the heart, then maybe you can at least deliver on the superficial thrills of Steven Spielberg putting an alien up on the big screen again. Well, I regret to inform you, there's barely any of that in the movie. I'm not a guy who gets too frustrated if a movie isn't exactly what was advertised on the tin. Backrooms is a recent example of a horror film that ended up being way more experimental than I even expected. But this movie feels like an absolute betrayal of everything that was marketed to us. Spielberg himself went on and on about how they're hiding the aliens from the marketing. Well, I hate to tell you, they're hiding them even from the movie itself. And instead of evoking Close Encounters and E.T. in the marketing, the trailers really should have said from the director of The Post and Bridge of Spies, cause this shares way more in common with the slow burn espionage investigative nature of those films, leaving us with an empty, hollow, disappointing cinematic experience that delivers on neither the heart or the spectacle promised through the marketing. And above all else, a movie that simply talks about empathy without truly showcasing it. No area is this more evident than its absolute contempt for the viewers, whose time it wastes without taking a second to feel their pain. And for that, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for weekly TV and movie reviews. And if you've had the chance to watch a Disclosure Day, hop in the comments and let us know what you thought about it. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.